Alright guys, welcome to a video. I'm going to talk about something random today, and the reason I'm doing this is to try to become an IGN All-Star, and this is all part of that process. I'm also writing a blog on the IGN website. I'm also contributing to the IGN wikis, and I'm also going to be following, and many of you will probably enjoy this, the League of Legends Season 3 Championship Series, where I'll be posting a video every Sunday recapping that weekend's matches. So today, the topic of conversation is, let's see here, a Mega Man Reboot. So I've been talking about a Mega Man Reboot for a long time. I've been thinking of a couple of different ideas for what I would want to do for a Mega Man Reboot, but I'm also going to talk about what I think Capcom is going to do in the next 2 or 3 years or so as far as Mega Man goes. So I think a Mega Man Reboot has kind of been a long time coming, and we've all kind of, in some sense of the word, we've desired a Mega Man Reboot because Mega Man is falling to the wayside a bit, especially with the departure of Inafune-san from Capcom. The fans of Mega Man are content with any Mega Man game coming out. Like, obviously, me personally, I'm a huge Mega fan, so I'm happy with anything. I'll play fucking Mega Man Star Force if I have to. But I would like to see a Mega Man Reboot because I think that he's still relevant. I think that his gameplay is still innovative and can be something that people will gravitate towards. And I think Capcom is really giving up on a property that has a lot of potential to not only move units but to inspire and to give gamers something new and fresh that they haven't seen before. What I would like from a Mega Man Reboot is I don't want to see something like what Mega Man X did or what Mega Man Zero did, where they did post-apocalyptic stuff. I don't want to see that, and I don't want to see what Mega Man Battle Network did either, where they tried to change the gameplay too much and they made it borderline childish. And I love Battle Network, but there's definitely that community doesn't exist anymore. What I want from a Mega Man Reboot is something along the lines of what I'm trying to think of a good example. I would like to see something that is a visual upgrade as well as a gameplay upgrade, but not a tonal upgrade from the classic Mega Man series. I think classic Mega Man has this really unique charm, and it has this really unique theme and tone, and there's something special about Mega Man as a character and his relationship with Dr. Light and Roll and Proto Man and Dr. Wily. All these characters are so iconic, and they have such iconic relationships with each other that I don't think that messing with that is really what's going to save Mega Man. I think that those relationships and then that theme of, a robot questioning his humanity, coming to his own, questioning the moral, I guess the moral issues with constantly destroying his fellow robots and also imprisoning Dr. Wily for years and years and years and years and years. And I think also, too, that they need to sort of acknowledge the fact that Mega Man is a recurring thing, that Mega Man is not a one-shot idea. You can't make a Mega Man Reboot without at least touching on the fact that Mega Man and Dr. Wily are going to be fighting each other forever. And the struggle will go on until the end of time. It's almost a Batman and Joker thing, where, Joker even says it frequently in the comics and also more iconically in The Dark Knight. He says, I think you and I are going to be doing this forever. And he's not lying. Batman and the Joker are going to be nemesis forever in some form or another. And I think that the same can be said about Mega Man and Dr. Wily, that there's some sort of connection there that will not be severed, because much like Batman and the Joker, Mega Man refuses to kill Dr. Wily. In fact, he refuses to kill anyone. He will destroy robots because they are not sentient. But even that comes into question later in the series too. So I think that type of tone is really powerful, and I don't think that they should mess with that at all. As far as the gameplay goes, Mega Man does need to move into 3D properly. And I love the 2D Mega Man games more than anything, okay? Let's just get that out of the way. The 2D Mega Man games are the best games ever made, so let's just put that on the table. But there is nothing saying that we can't have 2D Mega Man games and 3D Mega Man games. I think that the team required and the budget required and the time required to make a 2D Mega Man game is small enough that they could make a separate studio, a sort of smaller, off to the side studio over here, where all they do is make classic Mega Man games, right? Because, I mean, the power of classic Mega Man games is that they can be simple, but that the community can be so involved, right? The Nintendo Power contest where readers got to design their own Robot Masters and stuff like that. I mean, there's ideas everywhere. I've come up with hundreds of ideas for Robot Masters. So I think that the classic Mega Man games don't need to go away. And I think that Mega Man 11 will happen. I think they'd be stupid to not make Mega Man 11. Because Mega Man 9 and 10 were obviously profitable. I mean, they're not only giving them away for free on PlayStation Plus right now, but they've said, like, in statements that Mega Man 9 and 10 were profitable for them because the budget and the team were small enough that making a game like that sells as well as those games do, because of the fan base that Mega Man has, sort of, I mean, it's a no-brainer. Like, why wouldn't you make more of those? So I think they'd be dumb not to make Mega Man 11. And I think that can continue to happen. Now, there does need to be a big, full budget, like Capcom internally developed Mega Man Reboot in 3D for the next generation of consoles. This needs to happen. Because Mega Man can continue to be relevant in a small way due to nostalgia and the fact that he has a dedicated fan base that refuses to let him go. But those kinds of things are very niche, and I think if Capcom wants to continue making real money off of Mega Man, then they need to introduce him almost as a brand new property, which means completely redoing everything. It means revamping the art style. It means revamping gameplay. It means revamping, everything except the tone and except the main story and the theme. And I think that if they do this correctly, Mega Man can not only be relevant, but can also boost Capcom into this sort of new era of, like, great Mega Man games. Because we miss, like, as far as, me and other Mega Man fans go, we miss big budget Mega Man games. When Mega Man X came out, that shit was, like, a big deal. And even when Mega Man Battle Network and Mega Man Zero came out, those were, like, killer apps for the Game Boy Advance. So, I mean, we missed those days. We missed the days when Mega Man was still a big deal. And, I mean, it speaks to how small he's become with the release of Street Fighter Cross Mega Man, which was a good game. I had fun with it, and I think it was very clever. But it wasn't like a true Mega Man game, for one, and it wasn't 25th anniversary good. Like Zelda, when Zelda had its 25th anniversary, released Skyward Sword, they had a concert, they did all of this stuff. The Hyrule Historia came out, this huge deal. Zelda is massive, and it not even just in North America, everywhere, worldwide, the Zelda 25th anniversary was a huge deal. Mega Man 25th anniversary, slipping right under the radar. Nobody's talking about it. And I think that's really, really sad. I know this probably won't happen, but I would love to see a Mega Man Reboot announcement at TGS or at E3 or somewhere this year. Would be excellent. But I severely doubt that will happen. I was talking about gameplay before I got distracted. Gameplay for the new game should be... the template can be the same. You should still be going through linear levels, And at the end of each level, you should still be fighting a boss, and when you complete that boss battle, you should be gaining their power, and bosses should still be weak to each other and stuff like that. But I think that the two main things that Mega Man needs to do to evolve into a real, like, big budget 3D game, one, it needs to have a hub world. And I know a lot of people are going to cry foul, because classically, Mega Man games have always been you pick from 8 Robot Masters and you go at it. But I think that a hub world would really sort of project it into almost like Banjo-Kazooie or Super Mario 64 territory, where you have this sort of cohesive thing, and you're working towards some big thing that affects this hub world, but you have these individual little things that you can do as your gameplay progression. But at the same time, too, you need to be able to go anywhere and do anything immediately. As soon as you boot up the game, you need to be able to have your tools available to you. You need to be able to just go wherever you want to go and do whatever you want to do, because Mega Man is really, really good about letting players jump into the game and make their own decisions right away. I don't need a tutorial. Tutorials are crap, and Mega Man does not need them. I don't need like a intro level, okay? And I know that some people are going to cry foul of that too, because there's been intro levels in Mega Man games for a long time now, but I think intro levels need to go away. I think that one of Mega Man's strongest abilities is its ability to have the player jump right into a game and have no idea what they're doing and come out victorious by the end of it, knowing that they've learned something. I think that really is the power of Mega Man's gameplay. So my idea for a game, for a Mega Man Reboot, would be you have this huge city, a massive city, we're talking like GTA massive city. And it needs to be modern while having some futuristic elements. It needs to be like postmodern, but not quite science fiction. Like, there needs to be robots and stuff, obviously, but it needs to be a relatable city, because I think that one of the powers that Mega Man has too is our ability to relate to him as a character, and our ability to relate to his struggle in this world that he lives in. And I think that in the 80s and 90s, it was much easier to develop a relationship with a cartoon character than it was to develop a relationship with a real character. But the greatest games of now, especially in the 2010s, is our ability to connect with characters in real, living, breathing worlds. Environments are huge right now, and creating believable environments and in a believable like setting for your character to be in is as important as the character itself. And Mega Man is established. I mean, we don't need to screw with Mega Man as far as his personality goes or anything like that. He's a very easy to understand character, and you don't need to make him silent even in the game. You can give him a voice, and you make him a young teenager, not like a child, because nobody wants to play as a child, but make him, like a 12-year-old, 13-year-old, and, get a decent voice actor to play him and develop a personality for him. And his personality can be as simple as he's a robot that struggles with this moral dilemma of fighting other robots. That's fine. And there doesn't need to be anything more than that. He is a robot. He doesn't have to be human in complexity. And I think that that's part of it too, is that you kind of put yourself in Mega Man's shoes, and you sort of, since you're making all of his decisions for him, you feel like you are part of him. And maybe that's just me gushing because I'm a fan, but I think honestly that that's part of it. And so as far as that goes, you don't really need to mess with Mega Man too much. But the environment that he lives in, you do have to mess with, because Monsteropolis doesn't really have a set, like, it has no geography. There's no, like, real setting there. Like, The Legend of Zelda is fantastic because Hyrule has all of this history and lore, and it's like this expansive environment and world, and that's all part of it. And I think that Mega Man needs to approach that territory if it wants to get anywhere. I think Mega Man would work best still in a cartoon kind of style, but in more of a mature cartoon style. Like I could see something cell shaded, like maybe Borderlands kind of is a good example of something that is cartoony but still mature. And it doesn't, and obviously a Mega Man game would be rated E, so you wouldn't want to do something bloody and ultra violent or anything like that. But you would need to upgrade, and you would need to give it a brand new engine, give it a facelift, and then sort of allow that to happen. But so within this hub world, you can access any of the robot masters that you want to go fight at any time by, you know, entering a level from the hub world, like a Batman 2 or Super Mario 64 or whatever. Any of those games that have a hub world that connect to levels, that would be the structure of the game. And in that way, you sort of allow players to discover this world and become a part of this environment, but you also give them the ability to choose their path and where they want to go. Within the levels themselves, they need to remain platformers. Even in 3D, and I know 3D platforming is really difficult to get right, and a lot of people have failed, but I truly believe that it's possible, especially with the way that modern game design works. We have the capability to create a 3D platformer that makes sense. And as far as the shooting mechanics go, that's kind of a whole different ball game, because if you're not shooting in a straight line, or if you're trying to shoot in a straight line in 3D, then you just get messed up. And then they tried sort of doing 3D shooting and 3D platforming in Mega Man Legends, and it kind of worked. But I think that the controls kind of bogged it down a little bit at that point. I think that something along the lines of Ratchet and Clank would work great. Ratchet and Clank is sort of the epitome of like a modern 3D platformer, because it has that cartoony style. It's funny, but it's also mature in gameplay. It gives you a lot to do, and it's a platformer, and it didn't really stray away from its platforming roots. And I think that Mega Man has that ability still, and I think that Ratchet and Clank would be a good place for Capcom to sort of draw inspiration from. You can give Mega Man a lock-on system, but you can also give him the ability to strafe back and forth and sideways and shoot in a straight line. And Ratchet and Clank is also a great example of how to do weapon switching, because Mega Man is going to have a lot of weapons, and I think that 8 is too small. For a big scale, like $60 Mega Man game, you'd have to have a lot of weapons. And I think that 8 would not be enough. I think 24 would be a minimum. Obviously, switching between 24 weapons would be a hassle if you were trying to go to a pause menu, or if you were trying to switch through all of them with the triggers. So a weapon wheel, like Resistance 1 did, and like Resistance 3 did, and like Ratchet and Clank games all do, would be perfect, because you can have 3 wheels. So you open it up with triangle, you select with your right analog stick, and if you need to switch wheels, you just press the triggers. And I think that's a really, really good way of organizing your weapons and organizing your powers. Also, another thing, Mega Man games are pretty much exclusively about gaining weapons, okay, to beat new bosses with. But I think that there is room for development into things that are not weapons. Probably the best example, actually, is from Mega Man 1. The Guts Arm, or the Strong Arm, whatever the fuck Gutsman's weapon is called. I don't remember. But that is a weapon that has utility attached to it. It's something that you can use to get through environments, as well as you can use it to get through the boss, Cutman, which is weak to it. I think that stuff like that would be really, really cool in a new Mega Man game, because 24 weapons would be great, but what if you had 24 weapons and 8 utilities that can be used to, like, create platforms, or allow you to grind on walls, or run on walls, or jump a bit higher, or like sort of like Mega Man Zero style, where you got upgrades to your armor and stuff like that. That would make sense, and I think that would be a way to sort of give some variety to this, like, you defeat a Robot Master, get his weapon, use it to beat another Robot Master kind of thing. Also, one thing you can do with those utilities is allow for Robot Masters to be less about well, I mean, you would allow them to have patterns and stuff because Robot Masters having patterns is a big deal. One of the reasons I didn't like Street Fighter Cross Mega Man. But what you can do then is sort of Legend of Zelda, those boss battles, where you're relying on the utilities to help you. So, for example, say you have an ability that allows you to, let's say, switch gravity. Okay? So you get a utility from a Robot Master that allows you to switch gravity and go to the ceiling. So you're fighting a Robot Master, and you're using all your weapons on him. He doesn't really seem to have a weakness. Everything seems to be doing the same amount of damage, but it's doing a decent amount of damage. So you know that if you use the Mega Buster and you fight him well enough, that you can do it. But he has some really tricky stuff to dodge because it covers most of the bottom half of the screen with very little places to maneuver. But those same attacks would not cover the top half of the screen. And so if you switch gravity and go up to the ceiling, you're suddenly dodging all of his abilities. And you're still locked onto him because you have a lock-on system. So effectively, his weakness is your ability to change gravity up and down. I think that would be a really cool way to introduce something as a utility that is a Robot Master's weakness without being so obviously their weakness. I mean, obviously you'd have stuff like the Metal Blades where like it's just very good against X Robot Master because of the amount of damage that it does. And that's fine. That can be half of the weapons for all I care. But I think that introducing utilities as weaknesses that require you to really think about how you fight the Robot Masters would be really, really cool. And I think that there's so much like room for awesome Robot Master designs when you introduce the ability to have different sized rooms with like a whole bunch of different things. You can have platforming within boss battles. You can do all this cool stuff that classic Mega Man games don't need to do because they're so small and they have this established formula. But if we're breaking out of this formula, having all of these new things to throw at you when you're playing a new Mega Man game would be completely awesome. And I think that that kind of thing needs to happen. So you go from a hub world to these levels, you beat Robot Masters using their weaknesses, and you gain their weapon or their utility, and you go back to the hub world. Now within the hub world, and even within the levels themselves too, we have sort of this Metroid-like quality, because you're gaining new weapons and you're gaining new utilities. These things will allow you to open new areas and allow you to backtrack to old levels that you've already been to and get new things and collect new stuff. Obviously, there would be collectibles because collectibles are a big deal, and I love collectibles. So it sort of becomes this open world Metroid type game. And I know that I'm kind of throwing a lot of stuff at you, and this is sort of getting complicated, but I think that if you're going to make a $60 game, a reboot of a franchise, and it's trying to grab people, then it needs to have a lot of the stuff that other games have. And so, I mean, you have to sort of take everything, throw it in a blender, and take out the bad stuff. And I'm just kind of chucking ideas at you, but like, even if we had 3 or 4 of those things in one game, it'd be awesome. So, I mean, that's sort of my template for how the game would go. And then, of course, at the end of once you've beaten all the Robot Masters and you've explored the hub world and all this stuff, you get to go to like the final area, which is this huge castle that you have to explore and beat Dr. Wily or whatever. That's what I want from a Mega Man Reboot. What I think Capcom will do is just try to do a classic Mega Man game in 3D, which could be okay, but we've kind of tried that already with Mega Man Legends, kind of, and more so with the later X games where they had 3D segments, and those were bad. Like, let's just be honest, people, those sucked. So, like, they can try it, and it might be good, but I think that they need to go farther than that. And my only fear is that Capcom has given up on Mega Man. And I don't think they should do that, because I think that Mega Man is still such an important property to them, and they need to sort of allow him to rise up from the ashes, because I mean it's sad, the state of Mega Man right now. I mean, he, like I say, he has this amazing dedicated fan base that will love him forever, and you can't really destroy him ever because these people will like have an uprising. But what about introducing Mega Man to new fans? And I mean, especially younger kids too, because what do younger kids have to play these days? Most games, big budget games, are M rated. You know, the highest grossing games of the past year were Call of Duty, Halo, Borderlands, Assassin's Creed, and something else, right? All M rated games for adults, you know, and I get that adults are the main source of gamers, especially like young male adults, but there are kids out there too. And I know when I was a kid, I did not want to play Call of Duty. I didn't want to play something like Assassin's Creed because it was too complicated. I wanted to play Mario. I wanted to play Diddy Kong Racing. You know, I wanted to play something simple and small. And I think that Mega Man can be that for younger gamers, and he can be sort of this breath of fresh air that people don't see very often. So my plea to you, Capcom, is to create a Mega Man reboot that is good and like new and groundbreaking, but also is familiar, and it sort of appeals to the old fans, but also, you know, allows new fans to come into him. And I know that's a big undertaking, and I wholly don't expect it to happen, which is kind of sad. I mean, I have my hopes, but I don't think it's gonna happen. So anyway, guys, that was my Mega Man Reboot rant. I'm sorry if I started talking about something and then totally lost it, and started talking about something else. That is going to happen, I guarantee you. I have this whole list of topics to talk about, so I will be back next Tuesday, I believe, is when I record these videos. I think on Tuesdays and Fridays. When is it? Yeah, Tuesdays. So I'll be here on Tuesday to talk about another topic. And I don't know what it'll be yet. It'll be whatever I decide to talk about. But for right now, I guess I'll see you guys next time. Beyond and party hard.